This is Mim. Win? Min? Alright, according to the official soundtrack listing, it's Nim. Nim wants to tell a story, and it's your job both to listen to it and to help her tell it. Sounds simple enough, right? Well, if you've ever tried your hand at writing a story before, whether that be for a publication, for school, or just for fun, then you know how hard that can actually be. I like designing characters, so that's usually where I start. Other people love crafting an immense thousand-year history for their world, or develop complex factions and moral dilemmas. Regardless of where you start, crafting a story is a lot of work, and even once you've designed several elements, how do you make it all tie together in an interesting way? Every artist also knows that we can often be our own harshest critic. After a certain point, you might feel like what you're making isn't good enough, that you're just wasting your time trying to do it. And these doubts make it so much harder to make any progress. Though March of the Demon King's plot may center around defeating the titular Demon King, it also deals with Nib's struggles to actually tell the story. It all starts as we take control of Akio, the princess of the humble farming kingdom of Shuna, as she makes preparations to protect her people from the Demon King and his armies as they lay waste to the land. With only a few days and many avenues to explore for aid, we have quite the task ahead of us. This is where several rounds of trial and error come in as we explore each of the options and find the right order of things to do. And you will fail, but that's what I like about March of the Demon King. I haven't really played that many choose-your-own-adventure games before, but of the ones I had, it felt like most of the choices were disconnected from each other. Like there was only one true path, with all the other choices leading only to death. However, this game's paths don't feel as disconnected, as most of the options are necessary for beating the game, but the order in which to do them is what you need to figure out. Even if you fail or in some circumstances succeed, the game gives small but important hints for how to proceed or on things you may have missed. For example, there's a scenario early in the game involving a blacksmith and his missing nephew. For starters, the game provides several ways for you to learn that the nephew is missing, whether that be from the leader of your town militia, who expresses concern for the blacksmith, or from the blacksmith himself when you ask him for some arms. You could even just randomly stumble upon the nephew trapped by a bear at a lake, forcing you to confront the bear and take some damage to save him. If you save the nephew before visiting the blacksmith, he'll give you a powerful masterwork sword that will come in handy later to defeat a powerful enemy and act as a trading item. However, the damage that the bear did to you will probably prevent you from succeeding in another combat encounter, so it's clear you haven't quite solved this scenario yet. Later on, you might choose to visit Lake Turquoise, where you have the option to go fishing. On its own, it seems like a complete waste of time, with even the main character remarking on the usefulness of fishing. But when you do catch a phantom fish, known for its incredibly pungent smell that animals love, that's the game's way of hinting you're on the right track. With the previous scenario with the bear in mind, it just might be worth returning with the fish in hand to see if anything changes. And things do change. Instead of attacking us, we instead toss the fish at the bear, completely avoiding the fight and saving our health for another encounter, allowing us to explore even more options that had been locked off before. That's what I really like about this game. That moment where things finally all click together. First, it starts as little moments as you pick up on a few hints, then you start piecing together several scenarios before the moment comes when the full story unfolds before you, completely solved. In a lot of ways, it mimics the act of writing really well, as it mirrors ideas turning from single moments to a full, coherent narrative. You've probably noticed by now, but this game is supported by a simplistic, yet at times striking art style. Being made for the Playdate handheld, March of the Demon King's graphics have to accommodate a more retro-styled system, with the biggest limitation being only able to use a monochrome color scheme, but I think there are plenty of scenes that make good use of every pixel on screen. Most of the scenes on display are quiet and simple, allowing the narrative to fill in the details that the art can't show. However, there are still a lot of standout scenes that can make for some awesome album art, with some of my favorites including scenes with Nim. Nim sits in a dark void that could be easily mistaken for space, with a few distant stars visible in the background. Nim herself is brightly illuminated, contrasting starkly with the background, making the scene take on a dreamlike feeling. It may be a beautiful scene, but it also highlights how alone Nim feels in her storytelling, and that loneliness could also contribute to the stress she feels during the story. It could also be a representation of her doubt, a vast space where the Demon King will mock you for trying to save what he calls a forgettable world. Another neat scene is the Dungeon of the Skeleton Lord and the Skeleton Lord himself, which also make good use of a strong contrast between black and white to create a dark and menacing atmosphere. The narrative builds up this tragic story of a king driven to madness in an effort to save his son, corrupting him into the undead skeleton lord you've now come to slay. All the while, you're looking down this yawning maw, presumably the entrance to the dungeon, with the entrance itself being a giant skull. The game is warning you that you're practically walking towards your death. And when you persist deeper into the dungeon, the darkness becomes almost all-consuming as you stare in vain into the dark, trying to make out anything in the pitiful torchlight. And then the Skeleton Lord appears. Emerging from the dark, decrepit and skeletal, his head tilted at an odd angle, the Skeleton Lord is a haunting sight. In contrast with the previous scenes is the Water Shrine, where previous images lean more toward a strong contrast between light and dark. The shrine scene is almost blindingly white. The shrine stands nearly empty, its crumbling pillars sinking into the dark sea and fading into the horizon. It creates this lonely feeling, like trying to grasp the fading shards of a dying memory, which is the perfect feeling to accompany ancient ruins. The images are all accompanied by a great soundtrack as well, facing similar limitations due to the hardware. My favorite is Nim's theme. It's a quiet, simple theme, almost like a lullaby. It's the perfect calm theme to help de-stress after runs and contemplate the knowledge acquired from them. Another great one is the Alchemist theme. Paired with a stellar image, the Alchemist theme is mysterious and at the same time bubbly, almost like the music is a representation of the work that happens inside the tower. I love that such a seemingly simple and free game has so much effort put into it. From the well-made and charming art to an amazingly atmospheric soundtrack, to the interesting puzzle-like gameplay, to the themes of doubt and persistence, Terratopia March of the Demon King is an amazingly beautiful game that a lot of creatives can relate to. The game tells us that we will struggle with our creativity. We'll make things and remake them over and over again, trying to make them perfect. Even when we do make progress, our own doubts make us question the point of continuing on. And sometimes we let our frustrations take hold, and we end up hating what we make. But things don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be good. We don't even have to love our creations. The important thing is to have pride in the process and the work that went into the making, because when you focus only on the end product, you lose sight of the things that you learn along the way, and could help you improve in the future. Nobody's perfect, and you don't have to be. Sometimes, though, it helps hearing somebody else say that, and that, I think, is the most beautiful thing about this game.